Hey everyone, Joe Waxman here, the mediocre astrologer. Man, he's okay. What's up, everyone? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing better than I was. I was sick in bed for a few days, and I've been postponing making this video because my head was not in the right space to be able to think clearly enough. And yeah, I wasn't feeling well enough anyway. Um, but yeah, this one is about Uranus in all the houses. Same format as the other ones. I'm going to do 4 charts per house, and I'm going to go in order, first through 12th. Yeah, so what is Uranus? So Uranus is a planet that is pretty personal to me because I have it on my ascendant. Uranus creates a lot of independence, independent thinking, independent action. It really does not like to be tied to anything, including the past, including formalities or rituals, including the status quo, uh, what everyone else is doing, what the mob mentality is doing, what the normalcy is doing. You know, people have this thing. It's for a Uranian, it's very weird to see people, striving so hard to be normal, to fit in when you're just like it's like that's like a death of the individuality, right? It's like, okay, well, you get acceptance, but you killed your you're no longer like a unique human being. You're just like everyone else. You might as well just be a sheep, right? So it's stepping out of that sheep herd mentality, and being an individual, being independent, right? It's about innovation, right? Uranus can be a very intellectual planet. It's often associated with Mercury. It's called the higher octave of Mercury. I don't really like that idea because Uranus is a planet, Mercury is a planet, and the planets are not octaves of each other. It's like saying a person is an octave of another person, and it doesn't really work that way. We're all individual, we're all unique, and we have to respect the planets, and all the planets are unique. And Uranus is not a derivative of Mercury. It's Mercury is not a derivative of Uranus. They're just two completely independent planets. It's like, I mean, really, just like be like look at two people and be like, "Oh, you're a derivative of that person." Not really. They're two unique people. Right? So anyway, that being said, uh, Mercury's about the intellect. Uranus is about the expansion of thought, right, into new domains. Because, well, think about it. If you're not attached to anything from the past and you're not referencing anything from the past, then you're completely in the present, right? And if you're completely in the present, you can make up something that's completely new, completely never been seen before, right? Because you're not drawing from the same old. You're going to do the same old stuff if you're tied to the past, right? You're just like, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it. Let's keep doing it that way, right? But if you're not tied to the past, you're going to be just like, well, let's make up something and voila, it's never been seen before because, well, that's the nature of creation, right? You're creating things that are completely new and unique. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit hot here. Take this off. And refocus. Sorry, camera has a problem focusing. This is weird. Anyway, all right, let's forget about that. Yeah, when you're completely untied from the past, then you're just going to create new things, right? And it's not about being futuristic. Uranus is often associated with being futuristic. Well, nothing can be actually futuristic. What they really are saying is that it's very now, it's present, it's new, it's not tied to anything, right? It's not a reference, it's not derivative, it's not a reference to anything from the past or anything that, is normative or that carry on from ongoing things. It's all now, and that's why Uranus has this very explosive kind of energy because it's not a continuation, right? It's just a boom right here, right now kind of energy. So Uranus is associated with inventions, innovations, technology, new thinking, all sorts of innovative thinking, right? Anything that's new and sort of cutting edge, or just intellectually creative, inventive, right? Creative is the right word here because if we're actually creating something new, not just drawing another, you know, shade of whatever color of the same old thing that we've always done. This is boring. It's, that's not Uranian. Uranus don't play like that. It's going to be something original, creative, new, unique, never been done before, right? Some other associations with Uranus are um, rebellion, revolution, right? Independence of thought, um, politics and social issues, right? Because Uranus is very big-minded, so it likes to think about the whole world, the big picture, and um, it does tie in some of that the Aquarian ideals of like society and utopia versus dystopia, yeah, being an individual, but with the masses, right? It's not like Leo individuality, which is completely self-concerned. This is individuality that is tied into the people, the big picture, right? Um, what else? Music is an association often gets overlooked with Uranus because of the rhythmic nature of Uranus, which is so like every time Uranus will hit, it's a beat, it's a drum beat, right? So if you can, you know, uh, expand on that idea, then you get drums, you get rhythm, you get the backbone of music, right? And you'll see that with musicians often they'll have a strong Uranus. Um, it is associated with comedy also for that same reason, because the thing that makes us laugh is most often the unexpected thing that we don't see it, we're not expecting it, and then all of a sudden, bah, explosive, it hits us and we're like, wow, oh my gosh, that's funny, right? Yeah, so Uranus can be very funny. We see that in a lot of comedians. We see it in innovative thinkers like scientists, inventors, right? Electricians, or people who work with electricity, people who work with technology and computers, right? Those sort of things. Um, Astrology is another association that we'll see come up with often, right? Um, Astrology and just out of otherworldly kind of thinking, like aliens and all that, all the Aquarian associations definitely apply here with Uranus. Um, it likes to think about like outer space and all the planets. It's very cold, and intellectual, brilliant, even genius at times for its intellectual creativity. You could say intellectual creativity is really one of the cornerstones of uh, Uranian significations, right? Um, yeah, I, I I I can tell you from my own experience, there's almost like an allergic reaction to being normal or fitting in the status quo. Like Uranus has to stand out, it has to be unique, it has to do things differently. It's just sort of an innate calling. It's not a good or bad thing. People are like, well, what's the benefit of always the shut up, like there's no benefit, it's just the nature of it, right? Like, yeah, I mean, people are obnoxious sometimes. They're just like, "Ooh, you always got to be different." Well, that's just Uranus. I mean, that's how inventions are made. People being different. Shut the fuck up, right? Anyway, yeah. So Uranus likes to be different. Let's put it that way. All righty. I think that's most of it. That Yeah, explosive, dynamic, unique, revolutionary, evolutionary, right? All these things. But we'll get a better idea of it when we see all the charts. So let me share my screen. All right, first one is Isaac Newton, right? And he's got Uranus rising in the first house in Scorpio. We can look at the Aquarian house to get further significations. I like to look at the main ruler to see the physical aspects. So that would be Saturn. Saturn's more physical than Uranus. Uranus is going to be more intellectual, energetic, spiritual kind of influence, but a secondary influence, you could say, from the house of Aquarius, right? So there's something about fourth house, land, home, family, childhood that influenced him strongly as far as his scientific explorations and innovations and inventions, right? But this shows a very independent nature, a very independent mind, somebody who's out there exploring, looking to do things differently, see things differently, be different, right? Yeah, Uranus is said to be exalted in Scorpio, so that's a pretty strong area. Scorpio also is very deep diving and can be very scientific in itself. We see that often. So yeah, let's look at the aspects here to Jupiter, right? And then Jupiter's ruling the fifth house. That's good for general education. Also, Pisces is very creative in a different way. And it's also the second house. Dispositing is Neptune and Mercury, so it has a lot to do with his intellect. But anyway, Jupiter to Uranus contexts are also very inventive philosophically, and then the Saturn makes it more scientific, right? So he's bringing in the theories of physics, the laws of physics. Right. All right, let's move on. And we got an occultist, the occultist, Mr. Crowley. And I've heard you're not to say Crowley. You would correct people. It's Crowley, like a crow, Crowley. All right. Now he's got Uranus rising in Leo, opposite Saturn. And interestingly, Saturn's in domicile. Uranus is the other co-ruler of Aquarius. So this is kind of an interesting opposition. And it does show that somehow that a great rebellion towards authority, right? Because of this exact opposition, that he's a real rebel. Like he really rebelling against authority, but at the same time, he's harmonizing it with his sun because the sun's exact degree in harmony with both Uranus and Saturn in the sextile and trine position, respectively. So that's really interesting, right? Even though his sun's really weak and Venus is really strong, which is why he was so indulgent. So, but I don't want to go too deep into all that. Uranus co-ruling the seventh house also shows that he's going to attract people to him, which he did. He attracted a lot of like-minded, crazy occultists to him. Yes, and he was kind of their leader. He was very rebellious, also quite brilliant in his own unique way. And I'm not, this is not a, I don't condone a lot of his teachings or his actions or whatnot, but yeah, he was also a great joker. Like everything he said was like, you couldn't take anything seriously because it was always like, is he being serious or is he joking? He just was constantly joking. That's the Uranian influence, especially in Leo. It's going to bring out that lightheartedness, right? The fiery quality of humor. Humor needs that fire and air usually, right? But he does have Saturn in Aquarius to back that up. And then of course the air Libra. But yeah, he was also an astrologer, a pretty good astrologer, not like not a world-class astrologer, but a good astrologer. Like he wrote some very intelligent stuff about astrology, right? Not all accurate in my opinion, but that's okay. Yeah. So here we have a major occultist with Uranus, astrologer as well. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Charles de Gaulle, less well-known individual, unless you're a historian or a French person. Uranus rising in Libra. And let me just read about Charles de Gaulle. All right. He was a French army officer and statesman who led Free France against Nazi Germany in World War II and chaired the provisional government of the French Republic from 1944 to 46 in order to reestablish democracy in France. And then later he became president. He was elected president of France later that year. So politics, right? Libra is the sign of people, of being well versed with people, right? It's not just about relationships, it's all people. It's if you got Libra placements, you are a great people person. You know how to work with people. And here, so he's Libra rising with Uranus. Uranus in Libra. So Uranus is becoming very political, socially oriented here. By secondary progressions, is going to progress into Scorpio, so it's going to become even more powerful. Probably at some point as he gets older, not too long. Yeah, and I mean that's pretty much it. It's going to create, the independence, revolutionary qualities, all that. But it's mitigated by the Libra, which is much more peaceful and diplomatic, fair, balanced. But yeah, that Uranus is going to push him to be a bit more, independent, perhaps even aggressive in his stance, which is good because Libra's can be a little flaccid, a little indecisive, a little, people pleasing. Right? So we need that Uranian dynamism, right? Also the brilliance for his political maneuverings and campaigns and the war efforts, all that. Uranus is ruling the fourth house, and well, it's not. I mean, the cusp is actually in Capricorn, but it's most of the fourth house, fifth cusp. But it is taking up most of the fourth, and so we can say this. It's carrying significations of homeland, that sort of thing, right? And it's not making any strong aspects. I can see right off the bat now. Okay, so anyway. Now we have an actual comedian, Eddie Murphy, one of the greats, at least historically. Like he was. I mean, he sort of dropped out. He's taken a back seat, and then we could see why. Perhaps North Node in Virgo exactly conjunct Pluto, which is pretty intense. Virgo is very conservative. Pluto is so deep and intense. I mean, he's probably dealing with a lot of personal issues because of this. But Uranus in Leo, it is retrograde. And I wonder, if we could just check at what age that would have progressed direct. At 25. So when he was 25 years old, around then, he probably got a big break. When a planet stations retrograde or direct in the progress chart, that's a year that will be very impactful in the person's life. Not always positive, but oftentimes it is. But it depends on the chart, depends on the person. But here we have tightly conjunct the ascendant Uranus in Leo, right? So Leo is the key for the humor with Uranus. We also see Jupiter in Aquarius, which is furthering the comic aspect, and of course fire placements, tons of Aries, which is also very important for comedy. Leo rising. All right. Anyway, yeah, and then we see Uranus in conjunct, but still aspecting Mercury, right? And this is a very creative Mercury in Pisces, right? So not an intellectual Mercury, but for comedy, it's pretty good. right? That's 2 degrees. It's connecting to Mercury. It's in Leo, and yeah, so that's going to be very, very uh, excellent for comedy. Seventh house, right? So he's attracting a lot of people to him. So that's good. All right, let's move on to the second house. We have 49 charts to get through, so I'm not going to dwell on any one chart here. Gemini style, we're moving through a lot really quickly. Pablo Picasso. All right, second house. Now the second house it deals with a lot of things, but for an artist, it's going to have a lot to do with the aesthetic quality, the aesthetic nature of the art, right? And Picasso was very shocking, very revolutionary in his art. It's in Virgo, so there's a kind of underlying quality of his planning that would go into that the Uranus would affect being influenced by Virgo, right? Virgo is very organized and orderly, so it's talking about like the structural quality of the aesthetic nature that is revolutionary and shocking. And I did go to art school and I did study Picasso, and I do know a little bit about him, and I know that at least one of his paintings, probably more, but at least once he had to pull his paintings from the exhibition because they were too advanced. They were too ahead of his time. That's Uranus, right? That is 100% Uranus. Um, and later he reintroduced them, but when he painted them, they were just way ahead of his time. The aesthetic, the shocking aesthetic structural quality of it, like the deep planning that goes into it, right? Yeah, and it was one of those, if you know Picasso, it was one of those, like, I can't remember which one, but it was like where his African mask phase with the ladies and the weird poses, right? Anyway, Uranus is aspecting his whole Taurus 10th house sign, right? 10th whole sign house, and most directly Neptune, but it's going to influence all of them, right? So Uranus is playing strongly in with Picasso's artistic aesthetic and structural integrity. Okay. It is ruling the 7th. So, which is interesting because of his, love of painting. Um, well, love of painting other people. So 7th house, other people, shockingly painting others in a very shocking way. Let's go to Miss Del Rey, Lana. Lana Del Rey Beach. My grandparents used to live in Delray Beach. So I always think about Delray Beach when I think about Lana Del Rey. I wonder if Lana Del Rey has been to Delray Beach. Anyway, Uranus in the second. It's retrograde. Okay, now I'm just curious to see if 62. So no, it's still retrograde. We're gonna have to wait till she's 62 for that to change. We'll see. Alrighty. Yeah, well, she's got it in Sag. Uranus in Sag is gonna be wild, right? Wild, free, expressive, celebratory, right? But this is talking about her aesthetic, right? Her image, her voice, which is also second house theme. And that would be Uranus and Neptune. Part of which is not going to, I mean, that's going to, yeah, it's not going to influence her voice quality, but it's going to say something about her need to use the voice, that she's going to fortunate in that area. But I'm not talking about that right now. Uranus is tied to the 4th house, right? So something about youth, family, um, that she was probably singing when she was young, right? This also talks about the deep quality of her voice, right? I don't know that all people with outer planets in the second house are going to be like deep voice like her, but there's going to be something eerie and almost like outer space quality, very far out there, Uranian, Neptunian, something deeply impersonal about her voice and her aesthetic quality, but also revolutionary, shocking, and all that. And I find that with her music, she is not a carbon copy. She does present herself in extremely unique ways. And I think that's one of the things that really sets her apart, right? Um, the way she sings, how she appears, it's all very, um, yeah, Uranian and Neptunian. It's out there, right? It's like it's slow and deep and like mysterious and exotic and all these things, right? It is aspecting Jupiter, and that's quite good because Jupiter rules Sag and Uranus co-rules Aquarius. So that's almost a mutual reception. There is a mutual reception quality here with Jupiter and Uranus. Right. So that's good. Jupiter is the great benefic. It's good, and it's a day chart. If you bring in sect to it, Jupiter is our most fortunate planet aspecting Uranus. So yeah, success for her voice plus part of fortunes here. Right. Yeah, definitely. She chose the right career. Let's go to a writer, Kafka. Kafka. Now we have the same, almost like Picasso, right? Very similar, right? So Uranus is in the second house in Virgo, aspecting this um, Taurus stellium in the 10th house, 10th whole sign house, right? And most closely aspecting Neptune. Now, friends, Kafka, if you're not familiar with him, he wrote The Metamorphosis, which I did read, and other books, which I also read. Or I read some of his short stories, let me put it that way. Um, yeah, he's a great writer. Um, Definitely shocking, definitely revolutionary. Like, go read the Metamorphosis if you haven't. It is a shocker. It's pretty out there. It's pretty crazy. Um, I mean, everyone knows the basic story. A man turns into a giant bug. Just like, how do you write a book about a man who turns into a giant bug? That's crazy, but you do if you're good, if you can, and if you're Kafka. So, it's also a square Mercury and Venus exact. So it's definitely tying into his writing and his aesthetic. And the second house, it's Mercury, Venus, Mercury and Gemini. And, oh man, so this Uranus is really tying into his whole writing style and making it extremely unique, extremely um um revolutionary, shocking, groundbreaking, like never been done before. That's why he's famous. Um, yeah, it's ruling the seventh house, so that just gives him a good connection with relationships with other people in his writing, in his aesthetic quality, and his descriptive ability to, yeah, write about other people. Yeah, go read the Metamorphosis. It's worth it for sure. All right, Sylvia Plath. Oh, one more thing about Kafka, which is interesting. Virgo is such a conservative sign. Second house is the house of food, right? Of what we put in our mouth as it relates to our mouth, right? He wrote a story about a man who made his living fasting for entertain. Like he would go on a like in a cage or on a like platform and fast, and it would like and people would pay him just to see how long he could fast, and then he eventually starves himself to death because that's all he can do. That's very Uranus and Virgo's second house, right? It's crazy, right? All right. Okay. Yeah, Sylvia Plath. All right, Sylvia Plath. Um, Uranus in Aries retrograde, and let me just check. So when she was 62, but she did not live that long. It would have changed. She would have had some big breakthrough there. Well, I mean, could have been many other years as well. Anyway, um, let's see. Uranus in Aries in the second house. I mean, it really helps if you're familiar with these people. Like, so if you don't know Sylvia Plath, go read some of her poems. Daddy is probably the one I would recommend most. She's an excellent poet. I mean, she did write at least one novel, The Bell Jar. I read that. Really great book. And you do feel her humor. She's very humorous. And that comes through. It's in the second house. It's influencing her aesthetic quality, right? The tone of her writing, you could say, it deals with the second house, the actual tone, the expressiveness, the communication, the writing quality would be third house, right? Or Gemini. But the tone, the voice would be second house. And she's very funny. She's very humorous, great sense of humor, great lightness, even though it's so like heavy and deep at times. But this Uranus, you can see it's making aspect in conjunct, but still to Mercury, and it still counts. It still plays in there. It's just the inconjunct is going to carry a kind of more intense quality, a heavier quality to it, right? Bringing in sixth house, eighth house themes. Yeah. So Uranus is also trining Mars, squaring Ceres, right? So it's making some pretty strong aspects. Semi-square Vesta, septile the ascendant. Anyway, yeah. So it's tied into a lot of her chart, especially her expression, her writing, right? And it gives her this shocking, unique, dynamic, out of the box, revolutionary kind of quality to her poetry that's really, really uh, dynamic and wonderful. That's why we're talking about her today. And it's actually, she is 29 degrees. If this is accurate, it's 29 degrees. Aquarius is her ascendant. So that's her in a box, right? In the second house, being all wild and crazy. Yeah, of course, we could look to Saturn as the main one, and that's in Capricorn, but you know what? She is not all Saturn in Capricorn. She just freaking killed herself, right? I mean, Saturn in Capricorn is like stoic and just survives through every misery possible, but not her because she's Aquarius rising and she's got Uranus in Aries, right? So very impulsive and sudden and shocking. And of course, Scorpio influence there. Alrighty, let's move on to the third house. We got Sean Connery. Sean Connery with his um, iconic Saturn and Capricorn retrograde right on the ascendant, right? Sean Connery's not going anywhere. Like, it doesn't matter how miserable. Oh, wait, he's probably dead. Is he dead? I don't even know. He's probably dead. He's pretty old. I mean, he'd have to be nearly 100. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, we can see that. Anyway, we have, and this is actually, so I mixed it up just because like people are going to have different combinations. So I wanted to make it relatable to people. Um, so this is actually fourth whole sign house, but it's third quadrant, right? But we're bringing in flavors of the third house anyway, even if there's also even if it's mixed. But you can see that with the way he talks, right? I mean, first of all, he's got this very gruff Saturnian kind of um tough exterior, tough persona. Um, but he's really funny and abrasive and shocking and like wild. That has to do with Uranus and Aries. Let's see, retrograde. Okay. No. 117 days. No, he's not experiencing it go direct. He's going to be belligerent, right? Till the day he dies, which is probably I don't know when he died. I'm assuming he's dead. Uranus is making aspect to a square to Jupiter and a mild opposition to Venus. Right. So yeah, it's playing in there with his fun. He likes to have fun, right? It's being very humorous for fun, right? And yeah, directing it towards other people here, tying into this Jupiter. But Jupiter is very, Jupiter in Cancer, that's very generous. I mean, very loving. Of course, the Pluto, not so much, but anyway. Um, Uranus is ruling his second house, or co-ruling, I should say. So, you see that with singers, but I guess for actors as well, that's really good using the voice in the third house for communication, right? You second or third house combinations are great for anything with the voice and communication and speaking. Um, but yeah, it was very dynamic and funny with the Aries for sure. Mars and Gemini. I mean, he's not a comedian, but he is humorous, right? Especially live. All right, let's move on. Stevie Nicks. All right. Now she's got the more, well, this is actually second whole sign. Now that we got a different variation, but third quadrant, second whole sign house. But anyway, so Uranus in Gemini. So the very brilliant, kind of intellectual Uranus, right? That's also conjunct Mercury in Gemini in the third house. So her writing, her expression, that's going to be very dynamic, very brilliant, out of the box, and also very active. Mercury Uranus combinations create a very actively like creative mind, always moving, always thinking, dynamic, dignified by the Mercury. And I think I don't know like that much about Stevie Nicks, like, but she probably wrote a lot of lyrics and songs and stuff like that, heavily contributed to the music. It's also directly opposite Jupiter, right? In Sag. So it's influencing a lot here. And square Juno, not really seeing any other tight aspects. This semi-square belongs to Mercury, but it still applies um, to Pluto. Um, 11th whole sign house, so that's bringing the group effort, the group nature, the band, right? But yeah, just in general, it gives her a really dynamic expression, writing ability, um, and yeah, adds to her singing because um, yeah, skills of the voice. All right. Second Lord Venus in the third house. Yeah. But very strong Uranus here with conjunct Mercury in the third house. Gemini. Alrighty. Let's go to Malcolm X. All right, Malcolm X, Uranus in Pisces in the third house. Um, so yeah, this is going to strongly influence his ability to intellectualize, right? Especially in Pisces, it's going to be very creative, intellectually highly creative. It's sesquisquare the Saturn, which is his ascendant lord, so making him himself much more revolutionary, right? Which he was. And third house is the intellect, and so this is giving him kind of this brilliant intellectual quality, which he really developed in his time in prison. He really stepped up and became much more the person that we knew, afterwards. The very intellectual, deeply thoughtful kind of person, leader that he was. Um, Uranus is co-ruling the second house. That definitely is going to help with his speaking abilities, right? Tying the second and third house, making him, give powerful speeches. Um, yeah, and there's only one major aspect, and that's to his Saturn, but it's pretty tight with the sesquisquare. And it's not the best aspect, but it's still there. Um, and that's probably why, it took him a while to develop that, right? He didn't start off the gate being this brilliant intellectual, but through being in prison, Saturn, um, that's and time, that's where he developed that intellect. Also disposited by Jupiter, which is in the first house in Capricorn. All right, and we're seeing a different type of person, Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan. Uh, oh yeah. So this kind of looks like second house, but it's pretty much conjunct the third house cusp. And the reason why I chose this one is okay, it's tightly conjunct South Node and part of Fortune, because the hands lightning fast. Uranus can represent things that are lightning fast, and that's one of the things I forgot to mention. Lightning speed is Uranian. So Uranus can you see this in any like sports or martial artists or anyone who's got to do things sometimes with lightning fast action. And we look at the aspect of Uranus and South Node to Mercury, which Mercury also rules hands. We see it as tightly trine. So there's very excellent for that lightning fast movement. Right? Yeah. No, yeah, the nodes, South Node, any other aspects? It's pulling in the MC Lord. It's co-ruling the MC. Let's put it that way. In the third house, right? Third house, hands, skills of the hands. Also Gemini rising, Moon and Jupiter in the first, and then Moon, just as an A side, Moon conjunct the ascendant in Gemini makes them funny. That's a lot of where his humorous nature comes from. Also, MC in Aquarius as well, right? And then South Node Uranus, because he is funny. He's a very funny martial artist. He's excellent at it. Yeah. So there. All right. Let's move on. Jolie. Angelina. Jolie. We got Uranus in the fourth in Libra retrograde. Let me just check here. 32. Okay. So at 32, something happened to Angelina Jolie. She probably got a big break at around age 32. Because that's when Uranus went station direct. The Uranus in Libra. Um, it is actually making exact square to Venus and the ascendant, and Venus right on the ascendant, and yeah, she's a beautiful woman. I mean, nobody's going to argue with that. And this making her herself very independent minded, very revolutionary to some extent. I mean, Libra is going to pacify a lot of the Uranian qualities because Libra doesn't really like to be so extreme. It likes to be balanced, neutral, right? But it's going to make her more dynamic, more interesting, more unique. And Uranus is aspecting her Chiron, uh, part of fortune. So it's an important planet for her. And it seems to be sesquisquare the sun as well. So yeah, tying into a lot of other planets, personal points. And it's in the fourth house. So when she was young, and this could include, I think she did have trauma when she was young, right? I think she did have a lot of issues, and Uranus can represent trauma. That's another indication. I think I forgot to mention Uranus can represent trauma, and it did represent trauma for me as well on the ascendant. First half of my life, um, first, let's say 40 years of my life was all about that basically, um, mostly. Anyway, yeah. So, it is the eighth lord, so that definitely doesn't. I mean, if we call it a lord, co-ruling, whatever. So that definitely does seem to indicate some sort of childhood trauma, which I think she did have. I think I remember reading about that. Pluto also in the fourth whole sign house. You've got to consider that as well, adding to it. Yeah, just in general. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to see it so much in the fourth house, except its lingering effects and its aspects to other planets and all that. The fourth house is usually hidden and secretive, but can also show something about the family. And I think her father was an actor, powerful actor. Let's go to David Bowie. Then there we have a different, this is fifth whole sign house, but fourth quadrant. Conjunct the North Node, 7 degrees in Gemini retrograde. Let's see. 47. I don't know what happened to David Bowie at age 47, but it was probably a big year for him and probably held a lot of significance. But Gemini relates also right to skills of the hands. He was a musician, I think, especially piano, right? I don't know if he played other instruments, but I know he plays piano. Right? So that's gonna be influenced strongly by this. Um, let's see, Uranus is semi-square the moon, and sesqui-square the ascendant. And remember, okay, also he's Aquarius rising, so he did that like Ziggy Stardust, alien whole thing. That's very Uranian, right? It's Aquarian, but because Uranus also is tied to his fourth house, so when he's young and um and because of the aspect to the ascendant. So he's still carrying in a lot of this Uranian quality, David Bowie, and the moon aspect as well. Right. Um, and then not exactly, I mean, it's not really opposite Venus, I mean, but by sign it is. So the aesthetic qualities tying in there as well. But, for piano, for skills of the hands and expression and writing ability, that's going to be really strong. Also, one last thing, not just the being not just dressing up as an alien, but being like a gender neutral. Like he didn't I don't know if he called himself gender neutral. That wasn't really a thing back then, but it was like that's how he presented. That's a Uranian quality as well. Because remember, it's symbolic. I mean, the mythologically, Saturn castrates Uranus, but the how I interpret that is that Uranus is not worldly, right? So what do you need genitals for? What do you need sex for? For reproduction. Uranus is not concerned with reproduction. Uranus is not concerned with small petty human affairs, right? That's why it's all political and social. It's like I'm too it's the grandfather. It's like I'm beyond that. We're well beyond sex and sexuality. We're into, managing the whole world, right? So that's why it's like gender neutral alien, who's looking down upon the world, like, right, above it all, not concerned with very mundane things, but with super huge big things. It's very big minded. Sinatra, Frank Sinatra. I'm going to be frank with you, Sinatra. You got to be a little bit Uranian when you're talking about your North Node conjunct Uranus in Aquarius. So this is a very Uranian Aquarius, Aquarian Uranus, Uranus. All right. Uh, yeah. So music, especially in Aquarius, right? North Node. I mean, we got to see this is like something, very prominent. If it's tied to his North Node, how did that express itself? I mean, obviously through music, right? And you can see almost like the symbolatry. I'm making up words. Symbolism of the Aquarian glyph of this wave pattern. The wave pattern is energy patterns, right? And so music greatly fits in with that. I mean, besides the significations that I already said, like the rhythm making, that's explosion, cyclical explosions, which is a beat, a rhythm, right? So Uranus provides that rhythmic quality. It's also very, obviously very unique, dynamic, interesting. Um, Making too many aspects. I mean, the nodes is a major one. Part of fortune, exactly opposite this Uranus, right? Square Juno. It's not much of a thing. But yeah, fourth house. So from when he was young, right? I mean, the North Node kind of denies the youth aspect, but we can see that it's in Leo. South Node is in Leo, so there's already success at youth. But so the fourth house, something about home, homeland, or brick and mortar. And then didn't he like, yeah, he was like a regular performer in like Vegas and I don't know, or somewhere like, but the fourth house denotes something that's kind of like a brick and mortar, something very stable. So like he could be like performing somewhere regularly. And that's kind of like a sixth house thing, but like the brick and mortar, the physicality is very fourth house. Right. I think that's it for Sinatra. Can't think of anything else. I mean, he might have, yeah, he might be. I don't know if he was very, what he was? He was very socially minded. Yeah, I remember because he stood up for his friend Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr. And he wouldn't play at clubs that refused to let Sammy Davis Jr. play because he was black. Sammy Davis Jr. was black. So that's a very socially minded, that's a very Uranian Aquarian ideal. right? Because it's thinking about it's the principle, right? It's a society. Right? He's very socially conscious. And he also stood up with the Jews. He stood with the Jews, right? So he was for all the people. Frank Sinatra. All right. Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady, I think they call her. Saturn and Scorpio, right on the ascendant. Boom. And then Uranus in the fourth, Pisces retrograde, 49. When she was 49, something that happened, and that's probably when she gained more prominence in politics. So that's a really nice age for a politician because politicians are generally more mature when they get elected to higher offices, right? When they start to gain recognition. Um, and fourth house, obviously, homeland, right? Social concerns. Even though she was a conservative, Saturn rising, Pisces tends to be very liberal, so she did have some liberal qualities too. She wasn't completely conservative, but mostly, I guess. It is observe part of fortune, so that's going to play into her destiny. It's going to be an important thing for her. And it's not ruling a cusp here, but it is the fourth. It is the fourth whole sign house co-ruler. So that's interesting. Fourth whole sign house ruler in the fourth quadrant. So interesting. Yeah, definitely makes sense. Politics. Right. Let's keep going. So that's it for the fourth house. Let's go to the fifth house. And we'll go to the king. Not sausage fingers. Elvis. King of rock and roll. Elvis Presley. All right. Now he's got Uranus in Aries in the fifth house. Sesqui-square the ascendant, squaring Pluto and Ceres. Opposite the part of fortune. Again, seeing that. So some good contacts here, and then we'll get square Spirit Venus, Mercury a little bit, right? But fifth house for entertainment. And this was just, I mean, this is a really good example because, I mean, music, yeah, but also the way he moved, right? We see in his aspecting his ascendant. We're seeing it squaring that Venus, right? And, squaring Pluto, part of fortune. Yeah, that's not great squaring Pluto, but for his move, like the way he moved his body and the way he performed and the kind of entertainer he was, it was like shocking, mind-blowing, revolutionary, right? For the time being, for the time that it was, right? It's also ruling the third whole sign house, the third quadrant ruling, expositing Saturn and North Node and Juno. So that relates also to his expression and writing ability. I don't know how much he wrote, but at least his expression, right? He also played guitar, I think, but main thing is like he sung and danced. But this made him, the really dynamic, electric, especially in Aries, right? Aries just is a great initiator, right? The fire starter, right? So he could really start something new in music and in culture. Just this kind of sexual, dynamic, rock and roll, interesting, extremely, potent, interesting, fiery quality that he had. Make the girls scream with those hip gyrations, right? Tying in that Pluto desire, but eventually that caught up with him. Pluto in the eighth, in Cancer, the series 2. Yeah. Just curious if it went retro. No, didn't go retro. Should check that to see on all of them. All right, that's Elvis. Now we'll go to somebody completely different. Aubrey Plaza. She is a interesting. She's a young actress. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't even know why I chose this one. But she got South Node Uranus in the fifth house, and she's funny. I guess that's why. I mean, she's not like an outright comedian, but she's funny. You know, like if you watch her movie, I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. She's just this kind of funny girl who plays in movies these days, and yeah, it's Uranus and Sag. It's retrograde, so I mean, she's like, you know, Uranus, and she's okay. So when she's 52, she's not 52 yet. That's going to change. That'll be a powerful year for her. She might become much more prominent, but she's got a lot of other retrogrades too. Anyway, um, let's see. It's seventh lord in the fifth. Yeah, so this deals with entertainment, movies, obviously. Um, South Node Uranus. So like when she's young, she's probably got well, she is young, right? So when she's young, she's this dynamic actress, right? Uranus is excuse me, mucus. It's not doing any major aspects, in fact. I mean, why the opposite Chiron and Moon? Um, totaling the seventh. But yeah, just anyway, just she is kind of a unique individual, and I think this is a big reason why we see her on the movies, stuff like that. South Node Uranus in the fifth house and Sag. And the Sag will the fiery nature of Sagittarius will bring out the humorous quality of Uranus more as well. We're going to another one. Ricky Martin. Living La Vida Loca with Ricky Martin. All right. Interesting that's like, the song that comes to mind when you think about it's the song that comes to my mind when I think about Ricky Martin. So he's got Uranus and Libra in the fifth house. Loca, I mean, that's crazy. That's a very strong, we could associate Uranus with crazy. I mean, potentially. Um, Not that all Uranians are crazy, but there's a fine line between genius and insanity. That's what he said. Uranus is widely trining his ascendant, and we can see some similarity between almost. I mean, I hate to draw a strong comparison between Elvis and Ricky Martin, but they're both musicians, they're both dancers. Okay, they're both singers and dancers, and they both, I mean, they have that kind of electric vibe. Obviously they're in different classes, different time zone, different eras, time zones, eras. um, but Ricky Martin was a dancer as well, or is, I don't know. Um, in Libra, so it's not as exciting in my opinion, but I mean, I don't know, it's fine, it's good. I'm not dissing Libra. It's just it's not as dynamic as it would be in Aries, like with Elvis. All right. It's ninth house. Oh, so this is also significant because, well, we're getting a lot of ninth house activity. I mean, Venus and North Node, you could say eighth quadrant, but ninth whole sign house. And um ninth house deals with, among other things, celebrations, parties, right? So there's a strong partying influence in his entertainment because it's pulling in this ninth house plus the other significations here we have already about Aquarius ninth house. North Node, Venus, that stuff. Right. So yeah, a lot of parties and celebrations with Ricky Martin dancing, gyrations, hip gyrations, right? Um, making the girls lose their mind, I guess. I wouldn't know. My mind was not lost by Ricky Martin. Anyway, Alfred Hitchcock. We're going different route, but interesting nonetheless. Now we get a very powerful Uranus station in Sag in the fifth house. So here we still have entertainment, right? Alfred Hitchcock, but at a very different level. And it's exactly trying the ascendant, Leo ascendant. So even though he dealt with horror, Alfred Hitchcock probably had an amazing sense of humor as well. I don't watch his films. I don't like that style of film, so I can't really comment. But I mean, he's extremely successful. I mean, he does have Jupiter conjunct Moon exactly conjunct in Scorpio. That's pretty tight. I mean, that's interesting. And they're of the same degree. So they're tied together as well as semi-sextile. I mean, when it's that tight a degree, semi-sextile still applies, you know? It still is an aspect. I mean, they're coming together almost like two peas in a pod. Two I don't know, I don't watch enough of his films. Anyway, thinking about making a reference to one of his films. It's also sextile Mars. So it's applying to a lot and it's stationary. So it's so powerful. Stationary direct or retrograde. Oh, so it's direct station. Yeah, so that's great. Okay. Oh, no, it's really good. Plus conjunct Chiron, Juno, Saturn, North Node, or at least co-present. Conjunct Chiron. Yeah. Chiron will help make it even more unique and different and weird. Right? Definitely. So yeah. Brilliant, shocking, original, unique, creative, weird, dynamic entertainment. So that's Alfred Hitchcock, at least in regards to Uranus, co-ruling the seventh and the fifth. It's a good combination. I mean, fifth, seventh, and the fifth is having fun with others, entertaining others. Let's move on. Okay. Now we're in the sixth house. We're going to Jimi Hendrix. So Jimi Hendrix has Uranus in Gemini retrograde, conjunct Saturn by 7 degrees, both retrograde. Let's just check. Yeah, it would have stationed when he was 72, so he did not make it to that point. Now, sixth house, especially with Gemini, for somebody like Jimi Hendrix, would have to do with writing ability, with his writing. I mean, Gemini has to do with the actual skills of the hands, as well as the writing. But the sixth house would also influence the writing quality because the sixth house is very academic, daily grind, what you do on a daily basis, and as almost like as work, right? So we see a lot of writing coming out of the sixth house. Excuse me. I just need some water. Uranus is also exactly opposite his Mercury, and then a little more widely his Sun, Venus, and then Juno, and also trine by 1 degree Neptune. So it's highly creative, highly influential to his creative process, to his writing, to his guitar playing. Shocking, dynamic, revolutionary, evolutionary, right? Innovative. Yeah. So and Saturn as well is influencing that too. Um, yeah, and Mercury is actually dignifying it because Mercury rules Gemini. So yeah, that's really strong here. Like excellent writing ability, really unique, powerful dynamic. Um, and it's co-ruling the second house. So also his voice, it's influencing his voice strongly. He didn't have the greatest voice, but he definitely had a voice, right? Like a unique, powerful voice. Right? Um, so that's reflecting that as well as Saturn. So anything else? Yeah, I mean, also the speed. It's going to strongly influence the speed. I mean, Saturn would tend to deny that or slow that down. So it's a mitigating factor. It's a balance. It's kind of like probably Uranus wants to speed it up, Saturn wants to slow it down. So it's kind of a mix. But Saturn also is going to really drive it home, drive that the practicing, especially in the sixth house, the guitar practicing, the getting it perfect, the nailing it down to very hard standards for Jimi Hendrix. Alrighty. Now we're going to another musician, Michael Jackson, the king of pop. All right. And he's got Uranus conjunct Venus and then co-present with Mercury in Leo and J. So yeah, Leo being much more bright. So here it's not humorous. He's not a comedian, MJ, but he's poppy. He's pop music, right? And so his writing, sixth house, and daily musical um, pursuits are strongly influenced by Uranus, right? And his Venus, his aesthetic style. This is making him very unique, dynamic, incredible songwriting ability, right? As well as dancing, because of the sixth house mundane, like the quality of it's conjunct Venus, but it's like the daily grind, right? So it's still going to influence that. Um, I mean, it's not the only factor, of course, in his, obviously we have to look at everything. But yeah, mostly his writing, I would say. Um, yeah, especially because Venus ruling the third house. Uranus is ruling the 12th. So yeah, very creative Uranus. That is really aspecting. I mean, it's why the opposite Chiron, but main thing is conjunction with Venus. So third and eighth. So shocking death. Interestingly, sudden death. Unfortunately, but yeah, um, Uranus sets him apart, makes him write um very interesting, dynamic, new music, stuff that's never been heard before. So Uranian, Uranian music. Uranus's music in itself. Bruce Lee is next. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit low energy or I don't know. I'm still overcoming my sickness, so just forgive me if I'm a little bit slower than I have been in the past. Bruce Lee. All right. Uranus in the sixth. Now here we're getting a much different take on Uranus. For Bruce Lee, Uranus is opposite Ceres. Um, why the opposite Mercury? But let me see when it goes retrograde. 63. Oh, when did he die? Gosh, that would be interesting to find out, right? Um, but Uranus being widely opposite all these planets, um, it's definitely influencing the his fighting, right? Not only is it in the sixth house, which is very competitive, he does have Jupiter and Saturn directly opposite Moon, widely opposed to Mars, not widely, a little bit opposed to Mars by 3 degrees, Jupiter, wider to Saturn. But yeah, Uranus is going to greatly influence the speed aspect of his, he was super fast, right? Super fast fighter, Uranus in the sixth. Um, and yeah, it's also describing his daily routines and habits, being very explosive, and then widely conjunct Jupiter and Saturn. So bringing in third house elements because Saturn co-rules Uranus and Saturn both co-rule the third. So third and the sixth is very much can be about competition with the hands, in this case, fighting, right? Jupiter, the fourth, and the first Lord. So him himself, very much about his routine, daily routine, explosive, dynamic, intense daily routine, structured, hands fighting. Um, yeah, and just reiterate the third house speed of hands, co-ruling the third house. Um, Ashton Kutcher. All right. Ashton Kutcher got a great grand air trine. Got Uranus and Scorpio in the sixth. And so another signification of the sixth house is the regularity of a TV show, right? So he was on that 70s show. He's also been in a lot of movies, but Uranus being very comedic in the sixth house, right? So I forgot to mention that Bruce Lee was also in a TV show, Green Hornet, not as a comedian, but as a martial artist. Anyway, um, but here, yeah, Ashton Kutcher, all the air, right? All that air. I mean, geez. Anyway, yeah. So, but then Uranus also tying into that for his TV roles. Uranus is semi-sextile Pluto, which is interesting. That's a generational aspect, but still relevant. And it's actually exactly in conjunct the ascendant. So I mean, he's just like uh, he's hilarious. Like he smells like humor. Like he doesn't even have to say anything funny. He's just funny. He's a funny guy. I mean, I don't think yeah. I mean, some people are funny by the things that they say. Other people are just funny. They don't really need to do anything. They're just funny. And he's one of those people. He's just, he's not like a brilliant, I don't think he's a brilliant standout comedian. I've never heard him, but he's just goofy. He's silly. He's hilarious. But I mean, there's all this air. And then Uranus exactly in conjunct the ascendant. It's pretty strong. And then it's also square the sun and widely the moon by 4 degrees, and Venus to some extent. And yeah, despising the MC. So MC co-ruler in the sixth house. So TV shows. Of course, movies as well. He's been in. That's Mr. Ashton Kutcher. All right, let's go to the seventh house. And we got Napoleon. All right. So here we have Uranus in the seventh, widely opposite Jupiter. And for Napoleon, this is about politics. And revolution, but spreading it outwards to other people, right? Spreading his political vision to other people, right? Conquering other lands. And interestingly enough, Uranus is ruling the fourth house, so conquering other lands, right? Uranus. I mean, fourth house is land, right? Seventh house is others. It's out there, right? So that's pretty straightforward. It is as part of the grand, it's part of a grand Earth trine as well. I mean, it's trine is Mars and then Neptune as well, and then Pluto. So that's really interesting. Very practical. Practical politics. Powerful as well. So yeah. Uranus is too big-minded. Well, it depends on a person's relationship to Uranus. Some people don't. Here's the other thing about Uranus and all the outer planets. Some people are just, they're not, for whatever reason, like I don't want to make any broad generalizations, but for whatever reason, they're just not tapping into their outer planets nearly as much. But Uranus, if you're really in touch with well, I guess there's different iterations of Uranus, but here Uranus is not dealing with small things. It's dealing with big things, right? Conquering other lands. Not like playing practical jokes on other people, which could be a Uranian seventh house theme or signification. A very small, a smaller Uranus, humorous Uranus. All right. Let's go to another one. Mozart. And here we have the musical genius signature. Uranus conjunct South Node in Pisces. So Pisces being much more creative, ethereal, it's lending itself to music very strongly here, right? Also, I think he probably was a practical joker on other people, right? That was probably one of his big things. It's also co-ruling the sixth house. Just from the depictions of him, it just seems like this genius who is just such a I don't know what's the right word. A joker, I guess. A naughty boy. I don't know. Like he's got weird sexuality too. Anyway, it's ruling the sixth house, so it's influencing his writing, his daily routine, right? Dispositing Saturn, Sun, Mercury. So very much influencing his writing, his music. Writer opposite, conjunct South Node opposite the ascendant. So that's strongly playing into him, making him very Uranian. Right? Something's close to the descendant. It's still influencing the person. It's just tying that person in with relationship. It shows up in relationships more, but it's still reflecting on that person. and sextile with Chiron. It's making his music even more unique, dynamic, right? Interesting, perhaps strange at times with Chiron. But if you listen to his music, you can definitely feel the Uranian quality. It's just, you know, you call him a childhood prodigy. See that right here, at least the music. I mean, that's not just South Node Uranus. It's also because it's in Pisces, so music, and then this exact, almost exactly opposite the ascendant. It's not really making any other aspects, but the writing, musical writing ability, excellent. Okay. All right. Now we're going to slightly less of a genius, Bernie Sanders, a politician. What do you know? Uranus in the seventh, retrograde, conjunct Saturn. So whenever you see planets in the seventh, like that's how they relate to other people. That you'll see that is both what they attract and how they are with others. Right. So he's attracting Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, but he also is that way with other people. You see this at like when he's talking, like there he just kind of like explodes with stuff, with words and like it's very like yeah, we feel the Saturn there, we feel the Jupiter, the verbosity, Jupiter and Gemini in the seventh, right? Um Attempting to be generous, even though like the his politics would just destroy America, which was happening anyway, with Joe Biden. So, but let's see, it's at 0 degrees. Um, so we're bringing a lot of politics here. It's third house, so it's dealing a lot with his expression. And it's like just this kind of like gruffness, explosiveness, and just he is a funny guy. Like, I mean, he's not trying to be funny, but like, especially in Gemini, Uranus and Gemini in the seventh, it's like he doesn't have. I mean, the Saturn tames that a lot, right? Kind of inhibits a lot of the potential humor, but there is this humorous quality to him that we get. I wonder when Uranus went direct. 147. No, it's not happening. Um, Yeah, so he's always having that retrograde, Uranus retrograde, which is going to be more belligerent, more independent, more not following along. And that's why he's Bernie Sanders, right? That's why he's not run of the mill, Joe Schmo who we've never heard of. We all know who Bernie Sanders is, probably mainly because Uranus at 0 degrees Gemini retrograde, right? Pretty potent. 0 degrees is pure energy of that sign, right? Baby Uranus Gemini retrograde. It's just like unfiltered Uranian Gemini retrograde quality. Right? Very negating just being overly independent thinking in regards to politics and whatnot. An expression, and it is trine Mercury, so that's quite good. So there probably is, you know, I mean, that's probably why he's been successful in politics. Mercury is dignifying this Uranus, so there's some sense to his nonsense, a little bit, maybe sometimes, but mostly not. Anyway, all right. He became a meme too. What's funny about Uranus? One more thing. Uranus is a source of humor, whether the person intends it or not, right? So that's the funny part about Uranus. It's like the humor becomes fulfilled whether you trying to or not. And to illustrate that example, um, when I was younger, uh, I was often teased a lot and become the butt of many jokes. I have Uranus rising. I wasn't trying to be funny, but that Uranus, they were catching on, they were, feeling that Uranian quality that I have in my on my ascendant, and it was very funny to them. Like I would just do things, and they were just, they would always laugh out loud, and or like my reactions to their teasing me, it's just made them laugh even more. The Uranian quality, so he can become a meme with this, Uranus. So can some others. Elton John. Elton John, Gemini, Uranus, direct, almost directly on the descendant, right? So music, piano playing, also, um, how is he in relation to others? Pretty shocking, right? What are his relationships like? Well, he's gay. So there. Um, 1 second. How about that? Take a quick break. All right. So Elton John. Yeah, so also the Uranus in Mercury for music, piano playing, all that, right? Skills of the hands. Uranus, um, third whole sign house, second quadrant, not ruling a cusp, but dispositing Venus, uh, aspecting the ascendant, uh, the moon and Vesta. That's a semi-square. What else? Nothing. Okay, so yeah, I mean, he also has this very Uranian quality. Elton John. I mean, we can see in his appearance. Um, his music is very, yeah, it's very unique and original. I mean, North Node is also in Gemini. Um, and yeah, he loves to be different, loves to be completely unique and unto himself. Okay. Mm, I think that's pretty much it for Elton John. Um, all right, next we got Jimmy Page. Guitar legend Jimmy Page. Now this one is, yeah, it's seventh quadrant, but it's eighth whole sign house. But it's conjunct Mars tightly in Gemini. Right? Mars is stationary. So that's really powerful. Also Vesta. Uranus is retrograde. Let me just see. Yeah, when he was 34, it went direct. So I don't know how old he was when he was with Led Zeppelin, but when he started, probably younger than that. Well, let's see. So Zeppelin started in late 60s. So he was in his 20s. So yeah, so when he started, Uranus was still retrograde, but at some point it went direct. But then Mars is stationary, and Mars is so powerful. It's in Gemini. Gemini rules the hands, obviously, like, you know. Uranus conjunct Mars shows the speed, the absolute speed of the guitar mastery that he had, right? The speed and the dynamism and the originality. He did things that nobody ever did before with guitar, with rock and roll. He played the bow on the guitar. Um, he he played a double neck guitar. Yeah, he was a legend, absolute legend. I love listening to and watching Jimmy play guitar, Jimmy Page. Um, Uranus is ruling it's the fourth whole sign house, but it's dispositing the south node. Juno, Mars. So Mars ruling the sixth. So this is also speaking to his writing ability, writing and playing ability. Mars is also the ascendant lord. That's, you know, testament to him as well. Like, so he's becoming extremely Uranian as well. And if you see his dress, especially in the early days of Led Zeppelin, I mean, it was out there too. Like, it was wild. What else? All right, so we're getting the trine to Neptune, which is excellent for the creativity, right, the imagination, and then to the nodes as well, and then to Venus. So it's making quite a lot of aspects, a good amount of aspects: Mars, Venus, Neptune, nodes. Yeah, Vesta, I guess, hanging in there, and yeah, it's just, you know, you can hear the electric dynamism in the guitar playing of Jimmy Page. Very powerful. Would not be who he was without that Uranus. All right. And so that was 5 for the seventh house. I just had to throw an extra one in there for whatever reason. All right, we're going on to the eighth house. And so, oh, just about the seventh house. I mean, okay, so like, well, yeah, I mean, it's relating to his ability to relate to other people, right? To share this, to perform on stage and to share this kind of energy with others in the seventh house, right? The eighth house is a little different. Princess Diana. Now here we can get to some darker significations of Uranus because we're in the eighth house. And so Uranus can be accidents. And we see North Node conjunct Uranus. North Node also conjunct Mars and Pluto, even though it's out of sign, it's still pretty tight conjunction, right? Mars is cars. People say Mercury is cars. Mars is actually the car. Mercury is short distance travel. Mars is the car itself. Pluto, Uranus, eighth house. It's not a nice combination, you know. Does it have to be bad? Not necessarily, but it was in this case. All right. Uranus is not really a cusp here, but third whole sign house, second quadrant. So that makes sense as far as third, right? Third whole sign house for driving, right? At least if we're looking at in terms of her death. But the other signification of eighth house, besides death, not the other, another is charity. She was very charitable, right? That was one of the things that she was known for, right? And Uranus is going to be shockingly so, right? And she was like one of the first people, I think, who like gave a AIDS patient a hug, right? So that's also, we can see in the eighth house, just not being afraid of death or things related to death, or not necessarily not being afraid, but moving in that direction anyway. So like hugging an AIDS patient, right? This would, definitely qualify as something that's quite, revolutionary in the eighth house realm. Charitable, relating to death or illness, or not necessarily illness, but crisis is eighth house. Um, but yeah, we can also see the accident here, car accident. Also, a lot of secretive stuff going on behind the scenes that we probably don't know about. All right, let's go to Heath Ledger. Why so serious? He said that. All right. Um, so Uranus and Scorpio, eighth house retrograde. You know what happened to Heath Ledger, unfortunately. He died. Drugs. Scorpio, Uranus, sudden event. 113 days. Um, yeah, it's also exact degree of Neptune, semi-sextile. So Neptune, drugs in the ninth house. Neptune, Sag in the ninth. Um, retrograde or not, that's about partying. I mean, that could be about like, very spiritual, pursuits and whatnot, but it's also about partying. You're partying too hard. Yeah. Um, Uranus co-ruling the 11th house. I don't know how that plays in. Maybe he was playing, maybe he's partying with, maybe there was other people involved. He was doing, drugs with others. I don't know. But I mean, he's also got a loaded Piscean 12th house, which there's so much water influence already. That's really, and then the fourth house as well. Moon, Jupiter, I see, Spirit. So a lot of heaviness. Water can be very, very heavy. It just gets very, very heavy. With a water heavy chart, the person just becomes like waterlogged. You can just imagine like walking around like with your clothes drenched in water. You just feel very heavy all the time. That's what too much water can do. Elena Blavatsky, the occultist. Now, eighth house can be about psychic intuition as well. She was psychic, right? South node Jupiter, Uranus in Aquarius, right? So the Aquarian eighth house is also, people don't often think that, or at least, I haven't heard it as much, but Aquarius in a water house can be psychic, right? I mean, it depends. Like, it depends what planets are there, how it's aspected, and all that. But yeah, for sure. We get let's see here. Uranus a little widely trine the moon, and then Venus by extension. Um, sextile Pluto, making it more powerful. It's conjunct Ceres. And then widely opposite the sun. Jupiter's more opposite the sun, but you know. But yeah, it's in its own domicile, Uranus and Aquarius, so something very brilliant and intuitive about that position. Psychic even. Right. I don't know how long she lived, but it would have gone direct when she was 70. Um, I think that's it. Especially conjunct the South Node. The South Node confers a lot of spiritual essence. So South Node Jupiter, Uranus in the eighth house is definitely somebody who's a teacher because Jupiter, South Node, right? Especially in Aquarius, so very high-minded things, high-minded secrets, very out there stuff. Yeah, this woman is connected for sure. South Node Uranus, South Node Jupiter Uranus. Wow, that's pretty up there, out there. All right. Now we're going for somebody completely different. Um, Stephen Hawking. Okay. Stephen Hawking has Uranus conjunct Saturn. Um, yeah, it's almost in the seventh house, but it's in the eighth whole sign house and it's pretty close to the cusp, right? And so with Stephen Hawking, um, Uranus is actually exactly in conjunct the ascendant, right? So that definitely gives it an eighth house vibe, the inconjunct. Right? But here it's not like, especially in contrast to Helena Blavatsky. First of all, it's in Taurus, so the kind of thinking that Stephen Hawking is going to do is much more grounded and earthy. It's not going to be like, yeah, it's out there, right? Especially with the aspect it's making to Saturn and to the ascendant. So he's thinking about outer space, but he's thinking about it very as grounded terms as possible. He's taking out all the woo-woo mysticism, which somebody like Helena Blavatsky was all about, right? Here he's making it extremely earthy, and um, he was an atheist, right? So he was not like religious or spiritual at all. He was pure science, and that's very Saturnian. But at the same time, he was thinking about space and time and outer, like all that. That's Uranus, right? So Uranus Saturn can be like that, especially it depends on what sign, right? But when it's touching into the eighth house, then it's pulling in the secrets, the practical secrets, the most practical secrets of the universe that scientifically that he can conjure up. He also has Jupiter, Gemini retrograde in the eighth quadrant. And it would have gone direct when he was 26, which is interesting considering that he, at some point when he was young, he did develop that disease. Like he wasn't born that way. He um he was born healthy, or at least they thought he was healthy, and then he didn't find out till he was really sick. Um, was it cerebral palsy? I'm not sure. Whatever illness he had that debilitated him, that made him handicapped. He didn't find that out till he was a bit later. But that is a Uranian thing because the nerves. I think it attacked his nerves. But I mean, with conjunction to Saturn, it probably attacked everything, right? And then where's Venus? Venus is in Aquarius, right? So yeah. And so Jupiter, Uranus is co-ruling the fourth house, expositing Venus, which is his ascendant lord, right? Yeah. So that does seem to make sense. Um, Saturn's ruling the third and fourth. So Saturn's ruling the intellect. So Uranus is strongly influencing the intellect as well. Um, Uranus is trine Mercury. Oh, so that's a brilliant aspect, right? Mercury trine Uranus has a lot of intellectual capacity for thinking innovative thoughts. Yeah, so ascendant and Mercury are the main ones. And then Mercury also square the ascendant in Capricorn, a very practical, solid, hard-thinking Capricorn. And he, of course, does have a grand Earth trine. With his moon at the exact same degree as mine in Virgo, 19 degrees Virgo. Grand Earth trine. All right. That's Hawking. Okay, let's go to the ninth house. Out of the eighth house. Out of the secrets and death and all that. Abraham Lincoln. Mr. I cannot tell a lie. Well, not telling a lie is a very Uranian ideal, right? Neptune wants to tell lies. Uranus wants to tell the truth. And Uranus is stationary. So he definitely wants to tell the truth with his North Node, right? Especially as he gets older. Even though the story was a kid, I think it's probably as he gets older, he's probably much more. I'm not saying that Uranus can't tell a lie, but there could be other factors. I mean, everyone has a Uranus, and liars also have Uranus as well. But anyway, his Uranus is very powerful. It's very stationary, right? Very stationary. It's stationary in his chart. Station direct or retro? It's retro station. It's about to go retrograde. Interesting. But it is station, so that's very powerful. And it's bringing in the significations of politics and social issues, conjunct its North Node. We see Uranus conjunct the nodes often with politicians, South or North Node. But yeah. Uranus is trying to see what aspect this. So it's trining Mercury again. So that's quite a brilliant one. But Mercury's in Pisces. So this is very not an intellectual Mercury, but it is good for being very idealistic. Pisces is very creative, but it's also very compassionate, very liberal-minded, right? Liberal-minded. Liberal as far as caring for the equal rights of all people, right? Including Black people. And Uranus is about freedom. And it's also about politics and social issues, right? And so if you're combining these two, Uranus and Mercury in water signs, it is very idealistic about freedom. Yeah. Ninth house is belief systems, philosophy of life. So he believed in freedom, very much so. Especially that Uranus is stationary. Uranus is also the co-ruler of the ascendant, carrying the spirit of the ascendant. So yeah, very ideal for Abraham Lincoln. Good thing he has this Saturn conjunct Neptune, because Neptune alone here would not be good. He would have a hard time telling the truth, even though he wanted to, if Saturn was not here. Unlike some other people who are president currently, who have Neptune in the 10th house. All right. Let's go to Bill Clinton. Okay. Bill Clinton has North Node conjunct Uranus. What did I just say? Politicians with the nodes in Uranus. Right. Ninth house. He believes in politics, social issues. I'm not saying he's a good guy, but and I'm definitely not saying he tells the truth. Especially not that Gemini is not. People have this thing that Gemini doesn't tell the truth. Gemini changes their mind a lot, right? And that's what that is. It's not that they don't. I mean, a Gemini can lie, but a lie is a choice. It's not Gemini's just lie. It's they change their mind a lot. But anyway, and it's not very. Yeah, it's not a very stable. It's funny, be hilarious. I mean, maybe he should have been a comedian, instead of a politician. I think that would have been a better choice for him. Slick Willie. Um, all his Libra placements, tons of air. It depends on what the definition of is. I think he said that. It's like the most ridiculous thing anyone's ever said. Um, yeah, Uranus is trine Jupiter and Chiron tightly, but it's influencing the whole ascendant in Libra, right? Uranus co-ruling the fifth house. He likes to have fun, right? And yeah, he likes to mix things up. I mean, Uranus and Gemini is going to be brilliant, but like master of spin as well, if there ever was one. Um, so yeah, politics, but not very reliable, I'd say. Uranus stationary is going to be um, much stronger. And yeah. Oh yeah. Woody Allen. All right. Uranus in Taurus in the ninth house. Uh Uranus is at the exact degree trying the ascendant in Virgo. Right. So for comedian, excellent. Excellent. It's retrograde. Let's check. 39. So when he was 39 and went direct, that was a big year for him, probably. I don't know what happened, but probably something happened. Right. Um, ninth house also has to do with like studies and whatnot. And so he probably I mean for him, comedy was probably a religion, a philosophy, and also an area of like, intense study. And this is not saying anything to do with his marriage choices or adoption choices or anything like that. But if you wanted to look at that, you'd look at the fifth house and you'd see fifth whole sign house. Capricorn is in the seventh. So kid, partner, marriage. Yeah, I know. It is what it is. I'm not saying anyone who has that position is going to marry a kid, but maybe they like younger people. Maybe they just like to have fun with their partners. But there's one iteration of that is marrying a kid or marrying your adopted kid. Ugh. Gross, but it is what it is. Um, yeah, Uranus co-ruling the sixth house. So also the writing ability, the creative writing ability is going, I mean, it's trying the ascendant and it's in the ninth house. So something, it's also in the 10th holes. Well, um, no, it's not the 10th whole sign house, ninth whole sign house, but close. I mean, the same sign as the MC. Let's put it that way. All right. It's also semi-square the part of fortune. So that's really interesting, playing a strong role in that. Sesqui square Neptune. So yeah, it's touching part of fortune, Neptune, and the ascendant. The ascendant most strongly. Yeah, pretty interesting. Dispositing his moon. Um, it's in Taurus, which is interesting. Not sure how to relate that to his comedy or to his movies. but I'm sure there's some connection there. If I sat with it long enough, I could figure it out. Um, I mean, just broadly speaking, Taurus will describe a certain aesthetic. So a certain Uranian aesthetic quality that he has. Okay. Anyway, that's a comic Uranus. All right, let's go to the. Oh no, we still got one more. Andy Warhol. All right, here we got it right on the ninth cusp in Aries, retrograde. And yeah, it's part of this grand fire trine. Um, Trying the south node, but generally connecting with um all this Mercury, Sun, ascendant. Just add it, just so it's really playing into his artistic brilliance, his artistic creativity. Um, it's gonna be so ninth house is philosophy, religion, belief system, what you study, college. I think did he teach in college? I'm not sure, but he did study art. I think he studied advertising, in fact. I'm not sure if there was art involved, but regardless, yeah, it's going to be, especially in Aries, that he's really going to be a trailblazer. And what yeah, so never went direct. So this Uranus has always been retrograde for in Andy Warhol's chart. So even more rebellious, more going against the grain, um, more independent, more different, more unique, aspecting aspecting so many moon, Mercury, Sun, ascendant, Venus and Neptune, and then South Node, Saturn. And yeah, the North Node as well, playing a pretty strong role, um, ruling the seventh. He had a lot of people coming into his life. Um, he was like a teacher to them, a leader, a guru. That would be a ninth house thing. All right. And now we're going into the 10th house, and we got Jim Carrey. Now we have Uranus as the career significator for Jim Carrey in Leo, right? Expressive Leo, retrograde. And did it go direct? No, it's not going direct. It's always retrograde. This is very straightforward, right? Uranus, Leo, at the anaretic degree. Interesting, but yeah, Jim Carrey's hilarious. He's a comedian, no doubt about that. Obviously, he's got this Aquarius, you know, um, if that's a stellium, whatever. Saturn, Jupiter. Jupiter is exactly conjunct Mercury and then South Node, all in Aquarius. And this is really, I mean, this is where the bulk of his humor comes from, especially Jupiter conjunct Mercury in Aquarius, exact. Conjunct the South Node. It's a pretty amazing. And then North Node, widely conjunct Uranus, conjunct the MC. There's not really many other aspects it's making this Uranus, but very prominent for Jim Carrey. Yeah. Enough said. It's ruling the fourth whole sign house. Enough said. I keep saying stuff. Um, of course, also the Gemini moon and part of fortune is hilarious as well. Um, yeah, so early childhood. I mean, yeah, doing comedy from a young age. Yeah. Nicki Minaj. All right. So we got Uranus Sun is Sag, right? So Uranus, Sun, Venus, Neptune. 10th, moving into the 11th house, but Uranus is in the 10th. And then Aquarius rising. So Uranus carrying the spirit of the ascendant into the 10th house. Uranus relating to rhythm, right? So it's not just Sag. It's why she's such a good rapper. A lot of it is the Uranus, right? Because of that rhythmic nature, which is rap, but really strong rhythm. You gotta have a impeccable sense of rhythm and timing in order to be a good rapper. So that's where the Uranus really comes in strongly for Nicki Minaj. Um, yeah. And there's not really a whole lot to that. I mean, it's widely conjunct the sun, but it's still strongly influenced, and it's the position, it's angular. Right? Um, Hard to see what aspects it's making anything. The nodes, semi-sextile, the south node in conjunct the north node. And that's probably the bulk of it. Yeah, sun and the nodes. Good enough. Works for me. And being angular. Alrighty. Mussolini, everyone's favorite fascist dictator. He's only some people's favorite. I don't know. But I'm sure some people like him. Anyway. All right. Uranus in Virgo in the 10th house, right? And so again, Virgo being much more conservative. He's not going to let out his funny bone. I have to sneeze. Anyway, it's in the 10th house, part of fortune, career significator, um, politics, social issues. It is semi-square the sun and Mercury. So that's probably adding a bit of brilliance there. Also because Mercury rules Virgo, so Mercury does get to dignify this a little bit. Semi-square is not a great aspect, but it's still contact. Any other ones? Yeah, Jupiter. Jupiter, that's a really good one. And that probably really helps out a lot because it's daytime chart. So if we take sect into consideration, then Jupiter is the great benefic. It's exalted in Cancer, sextile Uranus. So that's definitely um, dignifying his political career. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him in the end. They killed him, but for a while he was living high on the hog, being a dictator, living the good life. um, yeah, let's see. So this is the fourth whole sign house, Aquarius. So that definitely tracks with his path, land, homeland, right? Ruling the land. You know, he's got a tremendous Gemini stellium. I don't want to dwell on that too much. Mm, no, there's no tight squares there. But I guess Mars would be the closest square to Uranus. Um, Mussolini. Now we'll go to Karl Marx. Um, God, I have no idea why people idolize this guy. Like seriously, no freaking clue. It's just dumb. It's like if you're really, really dumb, then you might buy into Karl Marx's ideas. But otherwise, no. Aquarius rising, Uranus and Neptune in Sag, uh, in the 10th quadrant. Not the 10th whole sign house, it's the 11th whole sign house, which also signifies um more of a political social group um signification. Um Sag, especially conjunct Neptune, also shows that he's not very honest in his politics, or at least his politics are just very imaginative, right? But probably, also Neptune is especially in Sag, it's going to deteriorate the integrity of it, make it more. I mean, it'll be much more. It's much more creative than anything, right? Maybe like a maybe it should have been like a college art project or something like that, rather than a theory for people to base their civilizations on. Um, I think that would have been better. Um, we got the square here to Saturn in Pisces, right? Of course, in Pisces. Um, yeah, it's just not solid enough. He's just dreaming. He's just imagining shit that has nothing to do with reality. I mean, it's Sag, it's Neptune, it's retrograde. Yeah, it's weighted out of the box, but it's not solid. It's not reliable. Um, it's his career, but it's like no, not really that great. Um, yeah, it's in conjunct Mars and in Cancer, which is really interesting if you think about that, because now there's some kind of dynamic between Mars and Uranus, where Mars is in emotional Cancer. It's, not well behaved, uses its force and anger and strength for emotional, impulses, violent, sexual, uh, indulgent, explosive. Um, your Neptune's playing in there. So it's not very good. He wasn't like a great man or anything. Um, so I hope I burst some bubbles. um, if some of you are like, "Oh, Karl Marx, he's so wonderful," no, he's not. Not at all. Um, I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, it never went direct. It's just not. There's nothing good about here. Nothing good here. There's too much idealistic, fancy, pantsy, schmancy nonsense. Let's go to the 11th house. And we're going to go to Jobs. Steve Jobs, who created a lot of jobs with Apple computers. Jupiter, Uranus, right? Cancer, 11th house. 11th house. The Aquarian vibe, the computers, technology, groups, networks, Apple computers, right? Networking, internet working. My internet is working. But Jupiter Uranus is a great inventive combination, especially for like big ideas. Interestingly, Apple computer and Cancer are both circles. Coincidence? I don't know. I mean, the Apple and Cancer. I don't know. I just thought of that about that. Let's see. Uranus is aspecting Jupiter. Uranus conjunct Jupiter. Uranus is opposite Venus. Uh, yeah, dispositing the Mercury in Aquarius stationary. So this is, fifth house. So this is like, yeah, his brilliance right here, a lot of it. Right? And then it's going towards Uranus and Jupiter. So inventive, creative, create intellectual creativity and inventiveness, big picture, big minded. Virgo rising, of course, is really nice for the organizational aspect. Apple computer, the Apple aesthetic is very simple. The Apple design, so I think that's relating a lot to this Virgo. Virgo is very puritanical. Um, and most of these aspects are coming from Jupiter, but it's tying into the sun, the moon, a little bit in different ways. Um, and Saturn as well. Third house, intellect. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. All right. The other thing about Cancer, which I just remembered, Cancer is about physical things, so building things, right? Because Cancer has a shell. That's its main protective component. So that's why Cancer in fourth house things often have to do with hard physical things, right? So built a computer, something actual physical. It wasn't just an idea. It wasn't Karl Marx bloviating about, the ideal situation which never exists and never will exist. It's this complete imagination bullshit, right? Here in Cancer, he's bringing it into reality. So yeah, that's quite good. Um, Now we're going to someone a little more obscure, Sharon Tate. Well, she's pretty interesting because read. Oh, shoot. Um, I have to pull this. Hold on. Just gonna get this real quick. Sorry about that. I just had to get the little write up about Sharon Tate. Um, it's relevant. All right. She was an American actress and model during the 60s. She played small television roles before appearing in films and was regularly featured in fashion magazines as a model and cover girl. Um, she received positive reviews for comedic and dramatic acting performances. She was hailed as one of Hollywood's most promising newcomers. Tate made her film debut in 61, blah, blah, blah. So different films. She married Roman Polanski, the director. Um, and then on August 9, 1969, Tate and four others were murdered by members of the Manson family in the home she shared with her husband. At the time of her death, she was 8.5 months pregnant. Amazing. Okay. Uranus in the 11th. 12th whole sign house, mind you, but 11th quadrant. Um, Conjunct Saturn. Okay. Yeah. Uranus co-ruling the 8th house, along with Saturn in the 11th. And let's see what else. So 0 degrees Gemini, retrograde. Went direct. Went direct when she was only 14, so that's interesting. Um, Square part of fortune. So 8th house part of fortune is squaring her Uranus, so that's accidental. South node Venus in the 8th. All right. There's a trine to Mercury and the Sun, both. Um, so she mentioned comedy, so that's relevant, especially with this uh, Aquarius um, activity, a bunch of planets in Aquarius. Um, Also trine the Neptune, so it's almost a grand, yeah, pretty much a grand air trine. So yeah, definitely for comedy and for communication and for the intellect, all that, very strong. Um, but yeah, accidents, trauma, murder, um, seventh and eighth house influences, right? Manson family, right? Groups, networks. So, uh, really interesting. 11th house is also popularity. So, like, while she was alive, this was, helping to make her very popular, right? A rising star, especially Uranus here. Saturn, not as much, at least when she would be young, but yeah. Um, but we can see the tying in of the eighth house into the 11th house and murdered in her home um, by the by a group or network, not a very good group or network. Manson family. In and then Mercury is in the eighth whole sign house, right? So this is still relevant, and so is her sun. Um, Mercury's in Aquarius, Uranus is in Gemini. That's almost a mutual reception. They're trine, so dignifying each other. Interesting. Didn't save her. Um, um, yeah. Tune. All right. Pluto's in the first. Pluto's actually sextile or Saturn, but tying in Uranus as well, I guess. Interesting. All right. Now we're going to Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain's girlfriend. I don't know if they married. Did they marry? I don't know. A lot of people say she killed him. She could have. He's not a good person. Um, well, I don't know. I don't know how good or bad she was, but she might have killed him. And she probably wasn't very good. She certainly wasn't a great musician. Like her, I mean, I was in my prime music loving years at that time, and Courtney Love was not it. Like she was not it at all. Nirvana was it. When they first came out, they were it. She was never it. Anyway. Um, yeah, we got Uranus conjunct Pluto in the 11th house, which is really interesting because of our association with Kurt Cobain and Nirvana, right? She was in a band, you know, not very interesting, but um Uranus conjunct Pluto in the 11th house. Um her notoriety came from her associations with her groups and her networks. Powerful groups and networks. Nirvana, Kurt Cobain, powerful dynamic. This is pretty much the same conjunction that Kurt Cobain had on his ascendant, the 60s. They're born right around the same time, right? So he had it on his ascendant. She has it in her 11th house. So he was the star. She was the groupie. I mean, F Courtney Love, no offense. It's like, nah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she probably killed him. That's all I'm saying. Um, yeah, also pretty strong grand water trine. So I mean, like, yeah, I could see how they got along, like both super duper intense and heavy and like emotional and just, drugs, too many drugs. Uh, Uranus is opposite Saturn, conjunct Pluto. Uranus co-ruling the fourth house. Um, Uranus opposite Saturn would be a testament to her rebelliousness, breaking the law, shooting her boyfriend, things like that, blaming him for it, maybe. It's not really making too many other aspects, but yeah, her popularity we could see here. It's both, you know, it's quite polarizing, you could say. What do people think about Courtney Love? Well, they probably think a lot of different things, but none of them are, if you know who she is, none of them are going to be very um most of them are going to be pretty highly charged, lover or hater. I think, yeah. But also the groups that she associates with. All right. Lastly, for the 11th house, we got George W. Again, a politician with North Node Uranus here in Gemini in the groups, the house of groups and networks. Social idealization, social ideals. So it's in Gemini, trine this Libra stellium, I guess you could call it. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Not that it matters, but it's exactly trine by 1 degree Jupiter, and then also, Moon plays in there, and then Chiron, Juno, Neptune, not really, but by sign. Um, but Jupiter is giving its blessing to Uranus and his politics, right? His political destination. So that's quite good. Uh, Uranus co-ruling the seventh. Um, so there is a certain amount of popularity that he had, even though he was considered a joke. But that's partially Uranus and Gemini, right? People made fun of him a lot. Um, but it's kind of par for the course with Uranus and Gemini. He probably has a good sense of humor. I mean, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he's laughing at himself, and he didn't mind too much that people were laughing at him, um, because people were also laughing with him, I'm sure, on the other side of things. But laughter, yeah, a lot of laughter. Uranus and Gemini, can't get away from that. Other aspects. Oh yeah, to Venus. Interesting. Interesting. He's got this third house stellium, and he really does actually like to paint. So hands, right? And then Mercury, it's conjunct the ascendant, along with Pluto. Yeah, Sun in the 12th house. Definitely very secretive. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to go into the 12th house. And we got Mad Donna. She's Donna, and she's very mad. That's why she's mad that she has to wear this eye patch because she lost her eye. She was a pirate, apparently, and she lost her eye. I don't know. Um, she got Uranus and Leo uh, in the 12th house, in the very creative 12th house. I hate how online you always get like people complaining about eighth and 12th house placements. That's all they do. And it's freaking victim-minded narcissists. When so many, not that I like Madonna at all, but so many successful people have strong 12th houses. It's a lot of secrecy and hidden things, but a lot of creativity, right? And she was an innovator, lover, hater. She was an innovator. And music, of course, Uranus, rhythm, but original, shocking, unique, dynamic, creative, intellectually creative, um, inventive, all of it that applies to Madonna, Mad Donna, Angry Donna. I call her Angry Donna. Um, she's kind of angry, isn't she? Yeah, Angry Donna. Yeah, let's see. Uh, Uranus is aspecting Moon by a semi-sextile. Um, Sun by being co-present. Also Venus by being co-present in Leo. It's totaling the sixth house, so influencing. I don't know how much she wrote of her own music. Um, but even if she didn't, it's influencing whatever her role was, whatever she practiced on a daily basis, whatever that was. I don't know. Uranus is going to influence it, make it very dynamic, interesting, unique, original, creative, intellectually creative, I should say. Creative in general. I mean, it's in Leo in the 12th house. It's just highly creative, inventive, right? Dynamic, unique. Yeah. Um, I think that's it. Angry Donna. All right. Sharon Stone. Also Leo retrograde opposite Venus in six. So, very similar to Angry Donna. I'm sure I'm pissing off Madonna fans right now. That's okay. Um, I can't help your bad taste. So Sharon Stone was famous for spreading her legs in a movie. I mean, that's her claim to fame. Um, I'm joking, but not completely joking because yeah, even though she was in that, what was that movie? I don't even remember what it's called. I just know that she it was so shocking at the time that she's wearing a skirt like it was she's being interviewed by someone and then she uncrosses her legs and opens her legs and for a split second she's not wearing underwear and you can see right in between her legs and it was shocking for a movie like that to have somebody do that. um so that's interesting, and it's Uranus opposite Venus, right? So it definitely plays in there because that's her Venus. She shockingly exposed her Venus. um so that's pretty interesting. uh Uranus retrograde. It went stationary at 35 when she was 35. I wonder how old she was when she exposed her Venus like that. Maybe she was 35. It's not that young, but not that old. That's really the main aspect it has. There's a square to, that's the part of fortune. Interesting part of fortune playing in there that that's where she got her fortune. Um, that's where we remember her. That's where I remember her from. That's where probably a lot of people remember her from. Um, 12th house also relates to movies, cinema, theater, stuff like that. Creativity. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's her shocking claim to fame. I mean, she was an actress, but like that was like the big moment um that a lot of people remember her for. All right. Charlie Chaplin. Uranus in Libra in the 12th, retrograde. Um, Comedic actor, silent film actor, semi-square, Pluto. Interesting. And opposite Mercury. That's the real uh comic aspect here. Um, yeah, Uranus relates to, like I said, the movies, so like comedy films. His comedy was, it's not what we would consider today laugh out loud funny, although some of it was. Some of it was. The Libra aspect, um, it's good for Uranus because it's I mean, in a sense, because it's for comedy, uh, because it's air and Uranus, right? Uranus covers Aquarius and it's Libra, so it can be quite funny in Libra. It's not its most uproarious combination, in my opinion, but it is there. Does have that capacity, and especially opposite Mercury, right? And so here it's going to influence his writing ability, comic writing, sixth house in Aries, especially, and then Sun's also in Aries, right? And then it's fourth house. So from a young age, we learned this comic um, ability. Of course, he has the moon conjunct the ascendant, and this is great for emotional expression, right? Then the emotions, the heart is right on the face. Like these people can express anything just by their face. And so for silent films, that's excellent, excellent. Um, Lucille Ball has this as well. Great comedic feature. Um, I can't think of anything else. Yeah, um, that was Uranus. Okay. 69, it went direct. I don't know what happened at 69. Okay, we're on the last one. And this is Nostradamus. I should say about Charlie Chaplin, just one last thing. This is also fueling his political social mindedness, right? Because going into his Mercury, it's opposite his, so it's aspecting his Mercury, his intellect, right? Mercury's ruling the eighth and the 11th. So yeah, ideals, social ideals. Yeah, he was very big opponent of Nazism and Hitler. Like who wasn't? But he actually made a whole movie about it, right? And made a big speech, and it's a very powerful speech and very, strong, wonderful speech. Of course, Mercury in Aries is very inspirational. Hitler also had Mercury in Aries, so for better or worse. But yeah, that's the Uranus, Mercury aspect here, being very politically or socially minded, even if he is mostly a comic. And comics themselves often comment on politics and social issues a lot. In fact, well, that's one of the things that they do. They observe society and make comedy out of that. Not all of them, the good ones. I guess relative, you could say. But here we are. Nostradamus. Um, Uranus in Pisces in the 12th house. So this is a very intuitive psychic Uranus, right? Um, he's not writing jokes, Nostradamus. He's writing like deep, like uh psychic, spiritual, significant, truths, predicting the future, really. And he's got this, I mean, look at all the water and I mean, so water in the water houses. I mean, he's so psychic. I mean, it's crazy. Moon in Scorpio in the eighth, Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn, Mars, Chiron in the fourth, and then Uranus, that's the Juno North Node in Pisces in the 12th. um, Politically, socially oriented as well, bringing in that element, talking about the world, what's going to happen to the world at different times. Saturn, time, the Time Lord, right? Moon, intuition. Yeah, he's very, very tied in to the spirit world with all water in the water houses and planets full of full of it. Full of it. No, not full of shit. Um, Uranus is trine Jupiter by 2 degrees. So that's a really strong one. Ruling, Jupiter exalted in Cancer, ruling Pisces, blessing this Uranus. So that's really nice. Jupiter being the great benefic of the chart, in the day chart. Uranus also ruling the 11th house. So co-ruling, disposing Venus and part of fortune. So definitely bringing in a lot of the political, social mindset to the 12th house, intuition, subconscious, and radical, revolutionary type thinking. Guys, that's pretty much it for Uranus through the houses. Hope you found that interesting and educational and entertaining. And yeah, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, book a reading with me, and leave a comment down below. Other than that, I'll see you guys again soon. Mediocre astrologer signing off. He's okay. I hope you guys are doing great, and whatever you're going through, don't forget to laugh it off. Win before you win. Take a victory laugh, and I will see you again soon. All right, thanks. Bye.